In the annals of social psychology, few studies have sparked as much intrigue and debate as Stanley Milgram's obedience experiments. Conducted in 1961 at Yale University, Milgram's research sought to unravel the complexities of obedience to authority, a force deeply ingrained in human behavior. The world had witnessed the horrors of the Holocaust just a few decades prior, and the question that haunted many was, how could ordinary people be complicit in such atrocities? Could it be that seemingly normal individuals, when placed under the influence of authority, would commit acts that violated their moral compass? Milgram's experiment aimed to shed light on this unsettling question. Milgram hypothesized that individuals were surprisingly susceptible to the influence of authority figures, even when instructed to perform actions that contradicted their moral values. He devised an experiment that would test the limits of obedience by placing participants in a situation where they were ordered to administer increasingly painful electric shocks to another person. The experiment's findings would send shockwaves through the scientific community and challenge our understanding of human nature. Milgram's experiment followed a meticulously designed procedure to assess the extent to which participants would obey instructions, even if it meant inflicting harm on others. Participants, recruited through newspaper advertisements, were led to believe they were taking part in a study on memory and learning. They were assigned the role of the teacher and introduced to another individual who they were told was a fellow participant but was actually an accomplice of the experimenter. The learner, as the accomplice was known, was strapped into a chair with electrodes attached to their arm. The teacher was then taken to an adjacent room and seated in front of a shock generator. The generator had a row of switches, each labelled with increasing voltage levels ranging from 15 volts labelled slight shock to 450 volts labelled Exica X. The experimenter, dressed in a lab coat to convey authority, instructed the teacher to administer an electric shock to the learner each time they answered a question incorrectly. With each wrong answer, the voltage of the shock was to be increased. The results of Milgram's experiment were nothing short of astounding. Prior to conducting the study, Milgram surveyed a group of psychiatrists, asking them to predict what percentage of participants would administer the highest level of shock. The consensus was that only a tiny fraction of individuals, perhaps those with underlying psychopathic tendencies, would go all the way. However, the actual findings defied these predictions. In Milgram's original experiment, a staggering 65% of participants delivered the maximum shock of 450 volts, despite the learner's pleas for mercy and eventual silence. These findings sent shockwaves through the scientific community, revealing the potent influence of authority on human behavior. Even when faced with a clear moral dilemma, individuals were willing to inflict pain on another person simply because they were instructed to do so by an authority figure. Section 4. The Ethical Storm, Controversy and Criticism. Milgram's experiment, while groundbreaking in its insights, ignited a firestorm of ethical controversy. Critics argued that the study subjected participants to extreme psychological distress. Witnesses to the experiment described participants trembling, sweating, and even experiencing seizures as they grappled with the decision of whether to continue administering the shocks. The ethical debate centered around the potential for long-term psychological harm to the participants. Furthermore, critics questioned the use of deception in the study. Participants were led to believe they were inflicting real pain on another person, which raised concerns about informed consent. The ethical implications of Milgram's experiment spurred a re-evaluation of research ethics in psychology and contributed to the development of stricter guidelines for conducting research involving human subjects. Section 5. Milgram's Enduring Legacy. Lessons in Obedience. Despite the ethical controversies, Milgram's obedience experiments remain a landmark study in social psychology. The experiment's findings have had a profound impact on our understanding of human behavior, revealing the power of situational factors in shaping our actions. Milgram's research demonstrated that even ordinary people under the influence of authority are capable of acts that they would otherwise consider morally reprehensible. The legacy of Milgram's experiment extends beyond the realm of academia. Its insights have been applied to various real-world settings, from understanding the dynamics of cults and authoritarian regimes to promoting ethical behavior in workplaces. The study serves as a stark reminder of the importance of critical thinking, moral courage, and resisting blind obedience, even when confronted with pressure from authority figures.